podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Ospreys Eyrie.
Hello and welcome back to the Ospreys Eyrie podcast, the podcast that is well and truly engulfed in Ireland Week. But in all honesty, Ireland Week is peaked already. With the win on the weekend. Joining me as always is the boys. Robbie, Yestin, how are we, boys?
I'm very good. Yeah, it's been a tidy weekend, a quiet weekend, until I heard that a particular Irish and Leinster supporter was back on Twitter.
He's back. I know. I saw him.
Yeah, that was the groundbreaking news of Sunday night. That was, and yeah, it's been a really quiet Ireland week for me. I don't know why. I haven't really gone into it.
It's somehow an even quieter Calcutta Cup week as well. Like, I've been looking at that and kind of going, why is no one talking about a game people normally get angry about? It's because everyone's still talking about Dan Edwards' drop goal. It's taken all the energy out of Calcutta Cup week. And indeed, it's just repainted Ireland week.
I think Felix Jones has kind of got the ball rolling by saying he watched like 1,000 lineouts this afternoon. So that's slowly building up. So yeah, keep an eye out for the next day or so.
God, he must be going cross-eyed if he's watching George Turner. He's just going like that all the time. He's not going where the ball's going. URC Origin round 10. Origin round for one of the teams that played at the Swansea.com Stadium this weekend.
15 of 16 teams.
Yeah, 15 of 6. Well, that's a really, because I really like Origin round. Right? I like it, and Ospreys do a good job of celebrating their feeder clubs anyway. Like if you can give praise to the Ospreys for something, is they've always celebrated the feeder clubs. Like they always had on the collar 77 clubs, one region, and stuff like that. And then, so they rock up, and then they didn't turn up in their Origin socks, but everyone else was doing it. And then people say, "Oh, it's because they're away." I think it's because they can't be fucked.
Yeah, it stinks of one of those, like the sort of thing Clive Woodward did all the time when he was England coach. And we see sometimes where coaches will go, no, actually, we've got to stay a united team. We've got to stay together. We've got to stay as one side so we wear the same socks. But you know what? Just celebrate where you're from. Celebrate people. And it does kind of come back to, obviously Dan McFarlane has left. The Grim Reaper of the Ospreys has knocked on that door and he's gone the way of Jim Malander. But it does kind of stink of the rumours that were coming out about the disharmony in the Ulster camp and how they weren't quite happy, if they're all being forced to wear the same socks rather than be individuals. But maybe I'm reading too much into socks, which wouldn't be the first time.
But surely they're contractually obliged to do it.
You'd think, yeah.
They're in the UFC.
Or maybe they all played for Ulster as kids. They all just came through there.
It's just one. Well, but what? And I remember actually reading this last week. They mention Origin round a lot in the pre-match build-up, in the like text bubbles they put out and stuff like that. And they're like, 11 of the 23 came through the Ulster sort of pathway. And I'm, all right, celebrate that. Let them wear their socks. It just like you said, it just stunk. So yeah, Origin round was great, and I really like that thing the Ospreys did of putting their junior clubs at the bottom of their jerseys. I had no idea Jack Walsh was from Manly, and now it's if anyone follows rugby league now, you automatically have to hate Jack Walsh because everyone hates anyone from Manly because they're awful humans.
But he's the only Union player to escape from Manly.
Yeah, it's sort of like reverse colonialism of Australia. He's been sent over here, but he got sent to Exeter first. So I don't know what the biggest punishment is.
Yeah, go over there and get a shit haircut.
Yeah. Although he's got great hair.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, he's overcome that since leaving.
Like really good. Well, I did actually see Exeter. If we're talking about former Ospreys players, and he'll come up later. Is Ethan Roots has shaved the mullet off. He's been in England camp for 2 weeks, and he's his mullet's gone.
That is Borthwick all over, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's trying to maintain these standards, this professionalism. It's like when Faletau was told to shave his afro down for aerodynamism reasons.
Which I think is where he lost his power. I know he was amazing after that, but 2011 Faletau with his mullet is peak Faletau.
His performance in the Liberty on one of his first few games, the Dragons, where he was unbelievable. I think still today, the Dragons only win in the
pretty sure
Liberty.
It's in that awful Dragons kit as well.
Yeah, the yellow one, the bright yellow one.
Not a good Dragons kit.
Oh, I've got that. I've got that sitting in the cupboard at my mum's.
Toby Faletau's one.
Yeah. I still fit into it, so it might have been.
Yes, then. How was it at the stadium? Being back at the stadium?
It was good. While. Yeah, it was first time in about just under a month. So it was nice to be back watching some live regional rugby, I suppose. I haven't watched that much Welsh Premiership actually. Ponty have had a few weeks off, so it was kind of like it was nice to actually go and watch some rugby, I suppose. It was good fun. It was a better crowd than what the start of the season was. It's good to see that slowly building again. And it might have not been the greatest game of rugby I've ever watched, but the last couple of minutes was rather exciting, especially when Kieran Williams nearly gave everyone a heart attack by dropping the ball right at the very end.
It would have been fine. The game's over.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
If he spilt it forward and Ulster picked it up and then set up a drop goal, then you're thinking, oof, that's unfortunate. But luckily he picked it up straight away, so it was it wasn't that much panic. You just felt like, just don't drop anything, just get it off the park. But yeah, he managed to do both, which is rather impressive.
Have you ever watched Gaelic football and the way they bounce the ball on the floor before they can do anything? Yeah, it was like that. It was like he forgot what sport he was playing. He had a Robbie Henshaw moment. He was like, I'm playing Gaelic football now.
Oh my God, can Keith play for like Mayo or something? That would be brilliant.
Get him back out there.
Actually, get him in the AFL.
Get that. You remember that show? They did like a show where Shane Williams tried to learn to play.
That was brilliant.
Gaelic football.
No one watched it.
No
one.
It was before we realized how boring a man Shane is as well. Yeah. When he still had the star power.
There's a great one where they go and they send two hurling lad. I think it's got to be hurling. Is it hurling or cricket? I think they sent two hurling lads out to America to play baseball.
Oh man!
And they're halfway through their first game, and they just chuck the gloves on the sideline because they're like, "Why the fuck would I catch with the glove on?" And just proceed to catch it barehanded all the time.
That's brilliant.
But you can imagine he's like lads who played county from like Cork or just like, why have I got a glove on? Right, should we do the news?
Let's
start with Hugh Sutton. So Ospreys announced today that English-born second row Hugh Sutton has signed a new contract with Ospreys. We're going to assume it's that same 2-year deal that a lot of players have been signing. Hugh, I shall tell you now. He made his debut in the 21-22 seasons, made 17 appearances to the team, picked up an injury this year in which game, Justin?
I know where his debut was.
Zebre?
I could answer that question.
I think it was. It might have been Zebre, yes.
Was
right.
it? Yeah, it was one of his first two. It was Zebre or Connell.
Yeah, because that was the Grim Reaper game, wasn't it?
Yeah, he played against Zebra or Zebra, or whichever you prefer to call them.
Who did he make his debut against yesterday?
It was away at Sale in the Champions Cup.
Harry Deve's debut as well.
Yes, and obviously
he scored a try.
Deve scored the try, and it was Adam Beard's first game as captain as well. And he was up against Lou Diaga, and it was quite a painful Sunday afternoon been sailed.
What else was famous about that game? Spawned a million memes.
The Sam Cross.
Sam Cross
coming back out from injury
as well. But obviously, Sam Cross took the headlines.
Sam Cross with his gas and air on the sidelines, pretending to be stoned out of his mind. It continues to be the greatest thing to come out of that man's career since opening many Aldi's.
So many Aldi's. So many Aldi's.
Oh, that'll never get old, by the way. Just Sam Cross. I think it was Josh Gardner who said it on Blood and Mud once. He was like, imagine you're little old Aldi signing this contract that you're going to get some Olympians to come and open your stores, and Sam Cross turns up. but what would be worse is James Davis could also turn up, and you're like, are you here to rob us?
Or present us with corporate opportunities with the Scarlets Rugby Club?
Yeah, no, he's their talent ID. He's the one who scouts all the players.
Is that what he's doing? I knew he had some
he's
office job there.
No, he's in charge of player recruitment.
Oh wow!
James Davis scouted Will Griff-John.
He invented bloody the NFT lad whose name I've forgotten. I've gone completely blank. What's his name? Tame Plumtree. Tame Plumtree. He's got 2 caps for Wales, and I just completely forgot he had a name. Oh man, I'm getting old. This is my job. Yeah, Hugh Sutton's great news. Harry Deeves as well, since we were last on, and Dan Edwards.
Yeah, Deeves
also signed new contracts.
Deeves and Edwards in 2 very contrasting videos.
Yes.
You had Dan Edwards, who's like the CEO's golden boy, doing this training session at Carmarthen, in the clubhouse afterwards, and then seemingly Harry Deeves, Luke Davis on their day off have dragged Lloyd, the videographer, in to film a twin tone parody.
Do we think these contracts we see them signing in Dan Edwards and now Hugh Sutton's signing videos are the real contracts?
No, they're not.
Because they just say player contract in big words, and then they've got it's a single side of A4, and there's a line at the bottom. But they told all those kids
back in black.
Yeah, there's a hashtag on the contract.
It was Ed Jenks who pointed this out on Twitter, and he tweeted Lance Bradley saying, "What is this shambolic stuff? Please get these players better agents," or something like that. And I was like, yeah, probably. No, so Toby Booth had this to say about Hughes re-signing. It's great that another young player has trusted us with their future. He is in good hands. Everyone has seen our commitment and success in developing our own, and we're looking forward to seeing him progress in the coming years. Sutton said, it's great to be able to commit to my future. The Ospreys, I've really enjoyed my time here so far. I'm looking forward to contributing to the team's successes and achieving our ambitions. Similarly to Nagy, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Ospreys and Swansea University for their contributions towards my development. I'm a rugby hipster. I've watched Hugh Sutton since he was at university. He was great. Similar with Nagy, just really good to see him kick on. I heard when they both got invited into the squad to train during COVID because they needed bodies, I was like, yes. And then Nagy made his debut at Dragons. Scored a lovely try for beautiful Alan Wynne-Jones. I think it was either an offload or a short ball. And Nagy, who he looked good in that. And then Sutton obviously made his debut. Sail Away.
And your Derby.
And your Derby Sail Away. Or AWOL Nation. But I like Sutton. He is an underrated ball carrier. His meters after contact is really good. He's clearly watched a load of Adam Beard and likes disrupting mauls. Does the hard yards as well. So I just think he's just a really and that, like Toby said, that commitment to re-signing young players and putting that faith in. It is brilliant.
I mean this as a compliment. He is the new Lloyd Ashley. He has the air of someone who could play 100+ games and just turn up and graft every single week. I mean that as a compliment. I realize, it's not as big a compliment as saying he's the new Halloween Jones, but yeah, he seems like someone who can be a kind of level of club hero by the time he retires, and it's great to see him remaining.
Yeah, I get that. Actually, it's probably similar to what we said about Nagy.
Yeah.
In that he might never set the world on fire internationally, but he sets like the club game sort of alight in what he can do. And he just provides us with that bulk. I think I was reading a lot of comments about the Ospreys scrum this week. And I think one thing that we don't give enough credit to Toby and to Duncan for is, yes, our props are technically great and they're physically strong, but we've always got two lumps in the second row that just push. And a lot of the noise coming out of our neighbours in the West is their second rows are always quite lightweight. So technique-wise or weight-wise, their front row may be up to it, but there's no weight coming in behind. And as a prop myself, it makes such a big difference having, a lump, a 6'7" lump behind you than having like a flanker. I know James Ratty's a flanker, but he's a big guy. And then you got Victor Sexbomb, who's a big guy. Hugh Sutton's a big guy. We've got lumps of locks, so that really does help.
One of the things I've always heard about Adam Beard is he's a deceptively great scrummaging lock.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. He's tight head lock, isn't he? Yes.
Yeah, he's made the switch over the last year or so.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good tight head lock. Yeah, you can see that. That's evident. Robbie,
hi.
Talk us through the Q&A that happened, because I believe you've been reading some accounts.
Yeah, so obviously I couldn't make it. Sunday service trains, what they're like. But obviously before the Ulster game, Lance Bradley, our Lord and Saviour, our Overlord, King of the Ospreys, I believe is his formal job title, had a Q&A about the new stadium with fan supporters, ticket holders, and just some of the kind of key points, I guess, that came up in terms of looking at this new stadium, which is the big talking point, I guess, of Ospreys news in general at the minute. I think the biggest note is they are definitely looking at a plastic pitch no matter where they go. A 3G or 4G pitch, regardless. Such as we've seen at the Arms Park lately, Connaught all over. Newcastle have one. There's plenty of clubs all around. Definitely looking at one. Apparently, there's 5 options they're looking at. 3 of them we know, being the Knoll, St Helens, and Bridgend. Apparently, there's 2 others. Aberavon isn't one, though apparently someone got very, very angry about that at the end of the Q&A, which is glorious. But the other thing that kind of becomes a sticking point, of kind of, I guess, starts to break that down, is that they are looking at wanting, ideally, a training centre next to the stadium, which probably puts Clondarcy in as another option, as one of those other 2 that
that's been floated around for years as the Clondarcy one, especially with the fact that they've built like a whole town, not the Ospreys themselves, but the council have built a whole town behind Clondarcy. It could make sense.
Have either of you been to the Ospreys training base at Clondarcy?
I've been to the academy. So that gym that trains into, I did a summer of college stuff back in the day, but I decided not to go to Neath College in the end. But I have been, and the old changing rooms as well. So I have been around, not since they've done it up, and got that sort of elite. I say elite, it's still a shed, but it's nicer shed. But I know exactly. But that's a Lance Bradley statement as well. It's the last thing he did for Gloucester Men's, as they got a purpose-built training centre built.
Which had with it, the other thing he built with Gloucester was a conferencing centre, which apparently he said is bringing in Gloucester just over £1 million a year. And he wanted to look for something similar. He said it might not make as much immediately, but because there's a market in Swansea for this. Apparently, Swansea Council have spoken of not having enough of these. So ideally, they want a hotel as well alongside, an Ospreys run hotel. is a kind of ideal option that they're looking at, which will delight certain people on rugby Twitter. The thought of more hotels.
When you say an Osprey-themed hotel, like I'm picturing you go into the room, there's like a canvas print of Rhys Henry on the wall. you go into the bathroom and like instead of hot and cold, you have like Justin Tipuric scrum cap and James Fender's scrum cap as the taps.
Tips taps.
Taperick, Justin Taperick. If they are going to build an Osprey's hotel, go all in, please.
Absolutely.
And just make it Osprey. Like, bring a former player to be the full-time receptionist. I don't care. Just, like, give me... I don't know,
Andy Lloyd.
Andy Lloyd. Bring me Nicky Walker as a full-time receptionist.
Nicky Walker's doing the bar.
And just hope he's not as slow as he is on the bar as he is running.
They could definitely get Paul James to come in and franchise his cafe. Come and put that in, have that as the hotel bar.
So that's really interesting.
All of the hotel rooms can be named after, like the number can be a score line. So,
the shit room is 44-0.
Yeah, you've got to hope to not be in 44-0, which is booby trapped.
It's a shed out the back.
There's one as well where you step in and it is just like photos of everyone falling over, and it's whatever the score was for the Biarritz game. You just got George Clancy denies you access as you try to go into the room.
Yeah. James Hook's a bellboy, but every time he goes to pass you your case, he dummies you.
You just don't get your case. He runs into a wall with it.
This idea has legs, lads. Actually, Ospreys, we know you're listening.
Yeah.
We write this down. This is gold. But seriously, like having multiple sort of business opportunities. Sort of what you could say about that's been a criticism of the Arms Park. Is there's not much sort of business opportunities. That's probably offset by how close it is to the city, though, and they've got Westgate Street, with the big stadium. I'm not sure the facilities at Dave Parade.
Yeah.
I'd argue it's similar. The interesting one is the Scarlet's ground is more similar to what we've got now in terms of it's got opportunities. And in all fairness to the Scarlets, their stadium is genuinely like a proper business centre for like local businesses, because it's just of how you got to remember how vast even further west is, So actually having that best of both worlds, it's interesting. They got 5, and I think I know the other 2. So I think Clondarcy's 1, and I want to say Swansea Bay Business Park. So where, for those who they know about Swansea, where the Bay campus is for the Swansea University, around that area, which again would be great if you're building a new thing, because you've got so much land. It's just a bugger to get to in terms of you can't walk there.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. I still think they'll go for a redevelop. I still think St. Helens is the front runner.
So they said this. They said that they're not looking at a complete new build. It will be redeveloping somewhere. But they intend to redevelop rather than just moving wholesale into, one stadium or another. Again, as he said elsewhere, they don't have 10 million to just build a new stadium. You'll be looking to adapt. And ideally they want to, own, or at least they want to be the primary tenants wherever they go. And ideally to own, so that they can, as I say, bring in other revenue, which is the way, it's where a lot of rugby clubs have been making their money. Leicester are building a hotel at the minute.
Wasps had one for years.
Wasps were kept afloat by the casino they owned. That's what kept them going for the last few years. So yeah, that's the goal, I guess. There,
London Welsh should have built a pizza place attached to their stadium. Perry Weeper would have kept them like Perry Weeper would have had them like Saracens level money by now.
I before that Sharks game went to the London Welsh clubhouse because they did like an Osprey supporters club thing there, where I briefly met Kai Griffiths, who apparently watches my videos, and I didn't know how to be like, oh, I thought you were all right back in the day. So I just sort of nodded and said hi. But I look at that pitch there, and all I can think is Gavin Henson played on that. It's the only thought I can have going through my head. And Tom Arscott, good player, but mostly that. But yeah, they're looking at 5-year, very much 5-year business plan to set everything up as the other thing that kind of comes through all of that. They have been talking to the uni as an option, so I guess that brings up your point. But there were rumors that the St. Helens redevelopment was being bankrolled by the uni previously, or they were interested in doing part of it. And yeah, so whatever option they're looking to install a new pitch, regardless. The another kind of wrinkle was that the decision to move the European sale game to Bridgend was made by the players. That was a player-led decision. They asked for it. They felt like it would give them a better advantage than playing at the Liberty would, and so they moved it there. And any future games played at home in the European competition this year will be played at Bridgend, is the plan. Partly because one of them clashes with a Swans game, but yeah, apparently that has no say over whether they move there permanently or not. He made it clear we're staying as a region, no mergers, no moving to Ealing. The new stadium will be technically within the kind of Australia region. They handed out a bunch of forms, questionnaires that want to take in feedback. I believe that's about what we've seen. Really, the new information was the fact there's 5 options. The hotel and other business stuff, which you probably could have inferred from some of Lance Bradley's other options. Oh, and apparently they've been told by TV companies they don't want the null. Apparently all the broadcasters don't want the null as the option because it's too small to get the relevant modern TV equipment in.
You can't, the TV trucks are required. They do have the adequate space at Bridgend, but there's just nothing at the null.
Yeah.
There's no parking whatsoever. The only way the null redevelopment could work is if they bought the cricket club, which is directly behind one of the stands. And you essentially moved that cricket club somewhere else and built over that. So it's, that's why null wouldn't work. That actually was brought up by that was one of the reasons the WIE rejected Nice's proposal for the UDC. Was inadequate facilities for TV.
Right.
And these fans were like, but the Ospreys stream the under-18s games, and there's a fact of that is it takes a lot less power to broadcast a game on YouTube and SWC Click than it does a URC game to South Africa, Italy, Leinster, England, all that. So, yes, then, any other news?
I haven't got any. I've been watching the game back for the rest of the last couple of days. So I've
cool. So let's just go straight into the game then. So the final score. That's good player. That's for later. I've had good player tab, but final score was 19-17 to the Ospreys. Let's have a look at some of the standout stats. So both teams carried the ball under 100 times, which sort of tells you the story of the game. More of a kicking battle, but it didn't feel like a kicking battle. It just felt very attritional. Like we said, it was going to be an attritional game. Ulster turned the ball over 14 times. They could not keep the ball. Let's have a look. Ospreys with 89% scrum win off 9 of 9 of their own scrums. Ulster with 100 off 3. Both teams around the 83% line-out win. Ospreys, wrong stat. Here we so Dan Edwards obviously scored 14 points, the most of he was a top scorer of around 10. Ulster didn't make a single clean break against the Ospreys. This was the first match this season that they didn't make a clean break.
Oh wow!
Their backs, and they talked about that in pre-game. Actually, their backs generally have been a bit on fire this season. Ulster one fewer turnovers than any other team in round two. Ospreys resourced the ball, the breakdown really well. And the Ospreys made 110 more carry meters than Ulster at the weekend with a total of 293. So Ulster have been talking a bit about their forward dominance, so to say, but action stats probably say that, and Kieran Williams actually will say that the Ospreys forwards just carried more and carried better. Individually, some of the highlights, Justin Tipuric and Harry Deeves both made 15, 16 tackles each. Kieran Williams and James Ratty were our top carriers with 15. No surprise there. We said the same last week. Alex Cuthbert, Justin Tipuric, Avadi Bossoff, one turnover each, and obviously one drop goal by a certain Mr. Daniel Edwards. Yes, then let's start with you. You were at the game. Talk me through your emotions from about where Tom Stewart kicks the ball upfield onwards.
That's a cracker of 50-22, by the way, that was. He just felt like the ball just slips out the ruck, and I'm thinking, oh, Tom Stewart's picked this up. Is he going to score from a maul from about 90-odd metres? Probably not, because that's what all he does. Then all of a sudden he puts boot the ball, and I'm thinking, well, whoops. And you just felt like, oh, that was a really big chance of what the Ospreys should have taken. Then, and yeah, it just kind of all went rather chaotic from there. Ulster, well, the last 5 minutes especially, you just felt like Ulster had control. Will Hickey makes a tackle without wrapping around his arms, even though I felt like there was a little bit of a wrap.
A harsh call.
It's one of those where you think if it goes against your team, you're going to be, oh, that's quite unfortunate. But if someone does that to you in the last play when there's a one-score game, you are screaming at the telly for the referee to get his arm out. But and you're thinking, Irish sides are normally well drilled. They should know how to close these games out. Then Tom Stewart gets pinged for obstruction at a rolling maul because he changed his mind on about 4 different occasions. And you're still thinking then, you still got about 60-odd metres to the try line. You're thinking you probably need at least 20 metres just to get within goal kicking range. And you're thinking, oof, with the impact of both benches, Stephen Kitchoff was on the bench, like we mentioned earlier, for Ulster. And, the inexperience of the Ospreys, and you're thinking it's going to be quite a tough ask. Ospreys win the free kick, so Tipuric gains a few metres there. And then Jack Walsh puts a really speculative grubber kick through, obviously in paying tribute to what Rhys Henry did about 10 minutes previous. And Jacob Stockdale, for some reason, picks the ball up and puts it into touch. I still don't know why he does this. I understand there was probably pressure from Cuthbert behind, which is fair enough, because I don't really want to pick up a ball and see Alex Cuthbert running at me. I'd probably run into touch as well. But it just gave the Ospreys a chance outside the 22. And the URC Unloaded podcast, which is streamed on YouTube, that thing with Tom Shanklin, John Barkley and Stephen Ferris, Jack Walsh admitted that Dan Edwards called the wrong call, but he set up the drop goal. So it kind of explains why there's the odd forward just standing kind of in the way when the ball goes back into the pocket. But according to Jack Walsh, it was the wrong call. But obviously, if you nail a drop goal like that, there's no wrong call about it. That's not exactly the right call. And then the celebrations ensure Nicky Smith runs onto the field to join in on one of the greatest pylons.
Yeah, there's that great clip where the kickoff's about to happen, and you just see Nicky Smith trundling off. Like he's not meant to be on the pitch. And,
Ben Warren single-handedly wins man of the match for delaying the kickoff, as everyone else is on top.
I mentioned that in the pod.
And everyone except for Harry Deeves as well, who's just standing there, probably in his position waiting for kickoff, while everyone else is in front of him. And then, luckily they kicked it to Justin Tipperick, who's quite safe under the high ball, and that was it.
Why did they do? What was that kickoff, by the way?
I really don't get it. What were they trying
Terrible.
to do?
Like the majority of kickoffs you tend to see against the Ospreys, they always kick to that corner because that's where normally Kieran Williams is, or when Morgan Morris is playing, it's normally where Morgan Morris is playing. And obviously near the end of the game, Tipperick had moved to 8, so he was somewhere around there.
But they kicked shorter than that.
And
they normally kick to deep into 22, into that sort of coffin corner, because that's the corner where I used to sit. So I used to see it all. I think that's the East Stand corner, isn't it? Yes, to your right. Yeah. And so normally, like you said, Morgan Morris or Owen Watkin or Kieran Williams stood there and they will take the ball. And then, so off this kickoff, you're expecting them to sort of do like a squib kick in American football, like just a genuine, like a little dink onto the 10-meter line. But they go back to sort of like that bit in between.
Yeah.
And just
it's nothing.
It was really weird because it looked like Tipperick was out of position because you normally see the 8 a little bit further back, like kind of like in line where Kieran Williams is.
Yeah.
And Tipperick was a bit further forward, maybe because previously Ulster stuck up a restart where Satete takes it, where it was relatively short. So maybe that's what Tipperick is trying to counteract. And it just landed perfectly in his hand. So it was a win-win situation, really. Then Kieran Williams dropped the ball and kicked it out, and that was it.
What a day. What a game. What a moment. Just like...
So, Robbie, talk us through your emotions going through the game, man.
Oh, mostly shouting. If anyone listened to I did a World Cup retrospective party the other day, and we recorded that first thing in the morning, the day after, and my voice is still hoarse on that podcast. I screamed a lot. I shouted a lot at that final whistle. It was superb. It's kind of, look, if we ever come to do like a World Cup of finding a way, that game is right up there for me. It was one of the most Toby Booth era Ospreys performances in terms of the way they dug in. They had no right to win that game from so many perspectives. You look at, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the sheer number 22 entries Ulster had, they should have been coming with point after point. And they managed 2 tries, and that was the lot. 1 try in either half, and then a Hail Mary penalty from their own half in the dying minutes because they were behind. And the way they held them out, Deeves holding John Andrew up over the line, and then countless turnovers and kind of heroic moments in that 22, all leading to eventually, the Kieran Williams try, which is phenomenal. Jack Walsh reading that, the offload, the Williams to keep it alive. As Booth pointed out post-match, the really pleasing thing is if you look at, obviously there's, is it McElroy gets back and makes the tackle on Dan Edwards as he runs out of legs?
It was Ethan McElroy.
Yeah, who my mum is convinced I'm related to, but that's a whole other thing. The next 10 bodies flooding in are all Ospreys players because they've all got up in support and they've all worked and they've all got forward. And, a bit similar to I think another game that would come up in that, World Cup of finding a way, the Leicester game where you've got the Keelan Giles try out defence. And it's something that's really pleasing and really exciting out of this team. And I think they kind of put all of it together in a performance without any of the Wales players, without any of the kind of big names. Obviously, Tipperick was back, which is fantastic. But it was a younger team with 2 players who literally met the squad 5 days earlier. And I just thought in terms of, I mentioned on the podcast last week, but I feel this team's come a long way in terms of learning to close out games since that Glasgow match at the start of the season. And I think that showed it. I think the way they found a way back to get back into it and nail that drop goal, Dan Edwards' composure is something that I think in some ways we've missed at times over the last couple of seasons. And him having that on his 4th game, his 4th start, is incredible. Just completely blown away by it and love it. And I love watching this team more than anything else in rugby. And it's such a joy. And seeing them pull that out is a game I remember for a very, very long time.
I watched this guy. I was traveling back from Berkshire back down to London with my partner, and so this game kicked off at 3. I was at where was I? I was just getting on the train at Farringdon in London, and the first 28 minutes, obviously no one scored a point.
Yeah.
Dan Edwards misses a kick. And I was like, all right, it's going to be one of them games. So I was sort of half paying attention. And then I just kept getting more and more shouty. And I try not to be, especially when like with ref decisions and stuff. And I was like, I was saying to you, but I cannot work this ref out. Like I cannot work out like what his sort of style is, and I couldn't work it out at Connacht either. And it got to so we go down to 13. And we'll talk about the yellow cards in a minute. So we go down to 13, and I'm like, shit, right. So they score off that more. Tom Stewart scores, and I'm like, game is done. It's a game. I think I said in the chat, I said, I think Robbie, you said something similar. No, you said, you said they could come back.
Yeah, it's an uphill struggle, but I don't think this is beyond us.
So then we do really well to get downfield with 14. And then Tom Stewart puts that kick in, and then it's just one of them days where it wasn't going to be a 50-22, but Jack Walsh had no choice but to take it out and gets tackled by McElroy. And you're like, shit, Ulster's tails are up here. That's a brilliant goal line defence, you know, probably illegal from the ruck. But so they have that ensuing maul. And then for some reason, Jake Flannery kept trying to do this loop-in pass all the time. And it sort of just lands in Jack Walsh's hands. And you're like, oh, shit. But then he gets the offload. And he gets a really good offload straight away. And that's actually, like, if that's Nagy, he probably carries that. He probably makes a line break if it's Nagy, actually. But Nagy carries that. Same with Hopkins. But because Walsh is a 10, his first instinct there is I'm going to get that ball away. And it's really good work by Prothero to get on his inside. And then obviously he gets off to Dan Edwards, who we know is quick. Ends up tackling us. And it's essentially like a carbon copy of the Cameron Jones, no, not that one, try from the Lions, in that Watkin gets tackled there. You know, there's no Lions defenders are lazy. So Cameron Jones can just run it in. Same with here. Toby, like you said, Robbie, Toby said there's 4 black shirts already.
Yeah.
So and I was trying to think of who they were. It was Tipuric was one of them. Keith Prothero, I think, with there.
Morgan Williams was the other.
Yeah.
That's the one, Ruben. Yeah. So you're like, oh shit. And then I think it was Gilroy said in commentary, I said, this game has just changed.
Yeah.
And then, but then obviously, the Flannery penalty on 74 minutes. And actually at that point, we all said, shit, this is done.
Yeah.
We were all like, yeah, this is good. And then, so you had then you got the really weird turn of events. And this is, and I'm not defending Dan McFarland here, but you can see why he's annoyed, right?
Sure.
So it starts off as they have that maul, so they get the penalty, they have that maul, and Tom Stewart is clearly warned twice. He's broken off. He's broken off. Yeah, you need to break away, and he doesn't. So it's a free kick. So we take the scrum, we get the free kick from that. Tipuric takes it up. We sort of run it across the line, and I'm hand on heart here. The grubber was the right decision.
So at the time, I had my heart in my mouth because I thought Stockdale would dive on it and not take it into touch.
Yeah.
But then Stockdale was having that. You remember the few years ago when he was on unbelievable form and he dropped the ball over the line against Leinster in a European Cup game, and his form just went out the window and he just like broke down and he wasn't the same player again for a very long time. And then he drops the ball over the line in that first half from that quick penalty from Flannery. And he drops it over the line and suddenly he just fell apart and he was knocking balls on. He wasn't there. And then at the end, he makes that error and he carries the ball out. And I felt like we saw that, like what happened in his career a few years ago happened in microcosm over this game, where his confidence seemed to just disappear as the game went on. And he seemed to make more and more errors, leading to that situation. But yeah, then when I watched it back, which I've done many times, there is no one at home for Ulster. Like that grub was 100% on.
Like it could, well, if Jacob Stockdale had used Sage Insurance, he would have seen that, you know, He's not very quick on the turn. So actually, but seriously, that Jack Walsh puts that kick in because he has the benefit of seeing Stockdale is planted, right? If you talk about a coaching point of view, Stockdale has got 2 feet planted, ready to make the hit. So he's defended the 3-on-1 essentially really well because he's put himself in a position where he's either going to hit the middleman or he's going to intercept the ball. So putting that thing in, he has to turn around, and I think no matter what he does, because if he takes that ball, there's like you said, Robbie, there's no one behind.
Yeah,
and he's just going to get tackled in his touch anyway. So then he gets tackled, and then that line out, I was just like, please, Lewis Lloyd, please. Because it was a real surprise that Lewis Lloyd got picked. We all thought that Custis Slice, Ethan Lewis was going to get picked. And then, it just goes from there. Like Keith puts which by the way was absolutely a high tackle on Keith. I'm sorry. Because my mum rang me the next day. She was like, were they under advantage? I was like, no, this is the thing. It should have been, but they weren't. And then 40 meters later, Dan Edwards is a hero.
Yeah. It's incredible. And it's a really basic drop goal. I wasn't thinking about the drop goal at all. It hadn't really occurred to me that was an option. I figured we'd go through some phases trying to get a penalty, see if anything opens up on the try front, and then maybe think about the drop goal. But the sheer balls on Dan Edwards just calling, admittedly the wrong call, but Edwards said himself afterwards in one of the 2 interviews he did for the man of the match that he'd spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks doing drop goal drills and drop goal practice. And clearly he'd spent a lot of time actually practicing them and less time memorizing the calls, but that's grand. But it shows, and also I think that's a really inspired bit of management from Toby Booth to kind of put that on this kid's shoulders. And, while you've got a bit of a break, to drill that into him. And then obviously he goes, this is the moment, this is it, steps up, and never in doubt.
And then, it's just a testament to that squad. Like everything that happened after that drop goal was just reinforcing that culture. So it wasn't just the young players that went and jumped on Dan Edwards. It was Nicky Smith, who, all season we've been told that Nicky Smith is leaving to France or leaving to England. Yet he's sprinting on the pitch, jumping on Dan Edwards. Justin Tipperick, leap, 39-year-old Justin Tipperick, basically babysitting his kids. Is leaping on, calling him Danny Eds in the post match, and so that's what I mean. It's just that togetherness, and you've got Tipperick. To be honest, I tweeted it in cheek, but you can argue that we the best academy in Wales. A product of that academy is bigging up this next generation. That Toby Booth always, whenever we get these Sunday matches, actually, we always get that really extended interview with Toby Booth, because he did a really good one. He's done a few, actually. He did one when he was a pundit down west, and he did one as a coach after Scarlet's game. And they're sort of talking through the decision-making processes. But it just reinforces that squad culture that we have. And you're just like, oh my God, they actually just love each other. They like each other. They want to play for each other. And Claire Thomas, actually, I was listening to that URC Unloaded. And I completely forgot Claire Thomas's second question in that.
Yeah.
Was surely your analysis would show that Ospreys win their games in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, is that, rather than blaming the ref, why are you winning, if you're so good, why aren't you winning the game?
I messaged Claire about it because I know her reasonably well. And I won't repeat what she said about Dan McFarlane, but she was full of nothing but praise for Toby Booth and how wonderful and warm he always is to her. And how he has, he started running jokes with him, and apparently that's a thing with a lot of members of the media. He's either around a lot. He'll have little running jokes and things will say to them every time. But I thought she absolutely, completely nailed him there. I say in bringing that up, shouldn't you have won the game by that point? Because from an Ulster perspective, that was a game they should have won. They had endless chance to do so, and they kept bombing it. They kept blowing it. And the Ospreys kept finding ways into it. And at some point, you've got to start to respect your opposition. At some point, you've got to stop looking at it and going, well, these are young players who we don't know so much. It's not the Alan Wynne Joneses of the world who perhaps they've learned to fear. You've got to go, actually, this team keeps holding us up. Let's take 3 points. Let's be more conservative. Let's change how we're playing. And they didn't. And the Ospreys fell off that. And I think that's something that has benefited us over the season, is the number of teams that are in the moment continuously underestimating how long they'll stick in there. I think the Lions did. I think the Lions thought the Ospreys were dropping away, and yet they didn't. And now Ulster, I think, we're expecting them to crack at some point, and especially after that second try, the Tom Stewart try, maybe they'd fall away. They didn't at all, especially down to 2 men, down to 13.
Well, yes, then we talked about last week that Ospreys are notoriously slow starters and Ulster are notoriously quick starters. And everything we said Ospreys needed to do, they did it. They did it really well, actually. Shutting that game. Now, talk to me particularly about that defence, because we only missed 6 tackles. I think we had well over 90% tackle. Talk to me sort of like how that, because our defensive captain wasn't there, was he? So talk to me about how that defensive line sort of shut Ulster down through the using our blitz.
Well, I think the only issue with the execution of the first period of the game, where you just mentioned about Ulster starting quick, was probably the 2 lineouts that Ulster did pinch right at the beginning. I think Henderson might have won the first one, then one of the back row pinched the second. So that was like probably, if you really look into detail, those 2 are like little mistakes that you'd look at. But when you lose someone that's defensively sound like Owen Watkin, and then Dom Morris pulls out so close before kickoff, it's a real big test for someone like Boshoff. On his debut, he's been here 5 minutes, and he's defending a 13, which is, well, for any outside centres, is really tricky. And there was one where he shot out of line, and I think Ulster played a pass to Addison, the fullback, and he dropped the ball, and you thought, ooh, really good line speed out from the set, but you kind of felt like if that pass went to hand, that might have been a line break. It did help that Ulster were throwing forward passes like they were playing American football, especially in the first half. And Flannery's looping passes meant whichever time they had an overlap, the Ospreys could just drift across, just walk across and make a tackle. And Alex Cuthbert did that superbly in in his 15-minute cameo. He put one in on Stockdale, put him into touch before it might have been before a penalty or something like that. And he just kind of invited the pressure, because he probably knew there was a floating pass coming along, and then you just drift out and make the hit. And I thought Cuthbert was brilliant, not just by his defense, by his chase as well. And I think the Ospreys kicking game went well this week as well. I think Ulster might have won the odd 1 or 2 kicking battles right at the start, but you kind of sense the one where Addison just touches back in his own in goal and just tries to walk to the 22 before the referee says, "Oh no, it's a goal line dropout." That was particularly funny, and you just kind of felt like that kicking battle was going to just continue. And I think probably Ulster are a bit guilty, kicking a little bit too long. Whereas I thought, especially in the last 15 or so minutes, the Ospreys just kicked it in the air and looked to compete. And, having someone like Alex Cuthbert off the bench, who's, a big man and is quite good in the air, that was obviously gonna help.
Yeah, I've been watching back Dan Edwards' performance in particular for a video that will be out next week.
About Dan Edwards? I mean, just to say
purely on Dan Edwards. I've given up on the Six Nations. I'm just going to talk entirely about Dan Edwards. Following week, we are going to get an Vardy Boshoff compilation. But yeah, I was going over Dan Edwards' performance, and just obviously man of the match, and I think deserved for what he pulled out. It wasn't a flawless game. I think he's still got a few moments where we saw him perhaps panicking a bit. There's a few moments where I think the speed of the game he's still adjusting to. He's broadly there. but there's still moments of him having to step up, him perhaps throwing, I think he threw 2 or 3 hospital balls, which were the kind of the low lights, I guess, where they're kind of things where there was space there a moment ago. Then by the time he's getting the ball off, perhaps it's closed off and it becomes, quite telegraphed. But broadly, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And we saw a performance of who he can be and what he can do. And he left most of the kicking to Ruben Morgan-Williams at 9, but he was calling an awful lot and he was making decisions to put the kicks in. But when he did end up engaged in kicking battles, I thought he was really good in terms of being able to often just looking long. I put one out into touch, made sort of 70 meters off it, which is fantastic. And the other one, as you mentioned, where he sent it long, bounced just past Will Addison, who dots it down, thinks he's got 20 to drop out, he hasn't. And from that, they run a little attack and get penalty out of it, which is the one he misses in the first half. But every kicking battle in which he involved himself, the Ospreys had a broadly positive outcome. They broadly managed to just about get on top on the whole. And I thought that's a huge positive, because that's something that perhaps is lacking in the other 10 we've had in Wales over the last few years. And it's not Jack Walsh's strength. Jack Walsh has huge numbers of strengths, but tactical kicking perhaps isn't one yet, though he's come on a huge amount this last season there. And so I think enormously encouraging performance by Dan Edwards, and Ruben Morgan-Williams, I think, hasn't got much mention, but did a really good job of allowing him to be himself alongside him.
Yeah, I think Ruben's not getting enough credit there.
Agreed.
I think a lot of where Ruben gets criticism, right, is he slows the game down. And sort of we play a lot more off 9 with Ruben, which is his strength. He's a really good controller.
Yeah.
So if he wants the forwards to track, if he wants box kick, or if he wants, and then he's constantly talking to the 10, and his box kicking has got so much better. And actually, we're not blessed with tall wingers of the Ospreys. So when Cuthbert comes on, the tactics change is in to make kicks competable. We kick to compete on that one, whereas actually when we've got Prothero and Giles, we kick that bit further to force the catch for the tackle.
Yeah,
because that's where Prothero and Giles probably are a bit better, because they're not going to get up and take the ball. So he's a really smart kicker. And, I think him and Luke Davis have their place. Luke Davis is clearly the one when you want to play with tempo, like a Benetton away. At Cardiff, maybe sort of. And Luke Davis has shown that he can adapt as well. And I think Ruben, I think people forget Ruben is a very good ball player. If he wants to play quick, he's great at the snipe. He's great on that arcing line he runs. He's very like one of the Horn brothers in that respect. He's great at staying ahead of the play. But then having the 2-10 axis on the field just takes that pressure off Dan a bit, and could be Walsh can come into the line. When he's at fullback, he looks to play a bit. I think that's clearly a Booth thing now. We've got Nagy, who's not a natural kicker of the ball, so he likes to play. We know Yeston Hopkins likes to play. So actually, for all Booth's haters saying that he plays forward oriented, he likes his fullback to take the ball to the line. And actually, Max Nagy is still in the top 10 carriers in the URC, and he's missed since Benetton.
Yeah.
So that shows you what our intention is off fullback. Anything else very quickly for the game before we play Go Player?
Justin Tipuric was excellent.
God!
For a first game back since November, he was everywhere, literally everywhere. I think it was the first couple of minutes of the second half where he makes a really big tackle and sends someone back the odd couple of meters, and then about 2 minutes later, he's all over a breakdown and just winning the turnover. Thinking, all right, that's the man with the blue hat. I know he's back. And yeah, he was good, and similarly to the Glasgow game, him and Deves worked really well together. You've seen, Warren Gatland was one that said during the Rugby World Cup that Jack Morgan and Tommy Reffel might have been a little bit of a mistake playing as 2 open sides in the back row. but you kind of see like the blend that Tipuric and Deves have kind of got at the minute. And those two were brilliant. And probably James Ratty as well was my third unsung hero. And
I think he's a harsh yellow card for Ratty. Looking back at it now,
you can see why he's given it.
Yeah,
I completely understand why he's given it. I'd understand more if the leg made contact first, but he had a full grip on the Flannery. But look, it was what it was.
I just thought Deves and Tipuric were absolutely everywhere. And I think obviously Dan Edwards got man of the match deservedly for the moment that won the game, as well as his goal kicking, everything throughout. But I thought those two were the best players in the park, and I couldn't separate them. And to have two players at the opposite end, there's 12 years between them in age, and yet they're both putting in that kind of performance is really encouraging for the Ospreys going forward, but also just for these next few weeks, which are critical, in the course of the season. Getting 4 points here was vital. The Edinburgh game next up, potentially, could be a game that's incredibly decisive. And then the Munster game afterwards certainly will be, if, Edinburgh isn't. And just having two players that can work like that every week, even when your internationals are gone, and turn up like that is so vital and so important. And just fantastic to watch. The way they got stuck in on both sides of the ball consistently.
Just absolutely brilliant.
Reece Henry's kick as well.
Yeah, let's talk really quickly about that, because actually he had and Craig Gilroy pointed out on Collins as well, again, in quite a patronising way. But he's a very smart rugby player, Reece Henry. So he picks that ball up, and the easy thing to do, and I think what a lot of props would have done, is just carry as much as he could.
Yeah.
Like, take the ball as far as he can and then hope that Tips is there to ruck over. But what he does is he puts in a really clever grubber that he obviously wants to go out, right? Which would have been a fine thing. But it sits up, so the Ulster player takes it, goes down. Tipuric is on him like white on rice, and just absolutely. And then the key man in that exchange is Alex Cuthbert, who executed the game plan perfectly. Of you're coming on to make tackles and hit rucks. Like, it's a really specific job that he had to come on. Is to win high ball, hit rucks, and make tackles. Like, he wasn't asking Cuthbert to carry that entire game. He was, and they hit that counter ruck and they get the penalty. And in hindsight, we should have gone for goal. But it is what it is. What it was great work off turnover ball that led to ultimately a positive outcome. And so Toby Booth in the post game talked about embracing chaos, right? So that's a perfect example of that. The ball spills out due to Ospreys' defensive pressure. Reece Henry picks the ball up. Naturally, the first thing you look to do is to pass the ball or you carry. But he doesn't. He identifies space, puts the kick in. He knows he's not quick enough to chase it. Who's there? Your open side flanker and your winger. Go through, force the penalty. That's what we mean in terms of I think that's a perfect example of embracing that chaos. Just love
word
it.
as well for Ben Warren in that, who really sells that he can't get at the ball and Ulster have sealed off. Like, it's a great bit of acting and just making it very like people talk about painting a picture to the referee, particularly with props and scrums, but he does it really well at that breakdown of just going like they're completely off their feet. They've sealed this off. There's no way we can get at this. Please, sir, can I have a penalty? And sure enough, he goes, yes, my good boy, here you are. Please enjoy it. I hope it tastes delicious.
Yeah, I love Ben Warren anyway. He's a sight. He did really well against Kitshoff as well.
Yeah.
Better than they probably had any right to. And again, as I said pre-game, grow up. But the theme ultimately was they didn't want it, They
didn't want it.
We haven't even talked about the scrum.
I'm really surprised we managed this long without saying that.
Because the thing is, they didn't want it. They didn't want it. Ian Henderson goes off after half an hour. Marty Moore doesn't make it that far.
They
didn't want
Marty Moore was injured. He wasn't. He was hooked.
No, he was hooked.
Like Irish international Marty Moore,
who spent the week saying, "Oh, I'm not low on confidence, but I can see why people would think that of me." And he's like, "Yeah, I can now."
The ironic thing out of all this was the first scrum, and the Ulster supporters, the travelling contingent, were singing "Stand Up for the Ulsterman," and the first scrum was so dominant by Nicky Smith that Marty Moore stands up and gives away the penalty.
for the Ulsterman.
So, not by actually following the chant, but Marty Moore nearly joined in with the chant. And yeah, it's just another fine display of scrummaging from the Ospreys 8.
But Stephen Ferris makes a really good point in that USC Unloaded. Dan McFarland was a prop for Connacht. That is his area of the game. Yeah. That was his area of the game and his expertise. And you're like a shit. Like that. And it's not even like, as we often talk about as props, we talk about having parity or having dominance. So parity is when you maybe get a tiny little shove on that allows you to win clean ball, right? Or then you talk about dominance when you're forcing them backwards and giving away penalties. Because actually a scrum going backwards isn't a sign of dominance. It just means you're stronger. Dominance is when you're eking penalties and you're forcing players to buckle and things like that. That's what that was. Nicky Smith was under him. Tom Boter in that first scrum actually pops up himself, but that's because Marty Moore is being literally folded like a pretzel. So just brilliant. And then obviously they bring a World Cup winner on who steadies their scrum up. I think Scott Wilson's getting the credit for that, but I think that's actually Kitsoff comes on and saves that scrum.
Yeah, their best scrum is the first one after Kitsoff comes on, and that's not a coincidence.
Yeah, I think that's that game pretty wrapped up. What a win, takes us up to 7th in the table now, where we visit Edinburgh away next.
Who are 1 point above us in the table, and have a uncannily similar run of final fixtures. So potentially decisive, because the two fixture lists are almost identical. At least like a parallel between them.
Yeah. But rather than talk about Edinburgh away, let's play #GoodPlayer.
Yes.
So we made a list off air last week, and then the words Rainbow Cup were mentioned to me this week. So what better way to celebrate the Rainbow Cup than talking about Ospreys versus Cardiff? This took place on Saturday, 24th of April, 2021, during the COVID sort of Rainbow Cup era. The final score finished Ospreys 36, Cardiff 14. Refereed by Sam Grove White. Let's go through. Should we go Ospreys or Cardiff team first?
I feel like going for the opposition first allows you to build up to the glory of Owen Watkin.
So at loosehead, Rhys Gill.
Yeah, a good player, I guess. He's a weird one, Rhys Gill, because he was one of those players that like people rated higher because he played in England, and then when he came to Cardiff, he was fine. But when he was at Saracens, I was like, God, he's at Saracens, he must be great.
37 now.
Wow.
Yeah. Only played 67 times. He played 135 games for Saracens. Fair play. Oh, this is fantastic shithousing on his Wikipedia, by the way. So it says in his senior career, it says like Cardiff RFC, Glamorgan, Saracens, Cardiff Blues, and then provincial / stateside Cardiff Blues from 2005 to 2009. Like what? Oh my! Who did Owen Robbins do this Wikipedia page? Rhys Gill. How many Wales caps do you think Rhys Gill had over a 6-year period?
7.
It was exactly 7. You're right.
Oh.
Well,
sometimes
that gives you the answer who edited that Wikipedia page.
Yeah. He made his debut against Ireland in 2010 Six Nations, which is a Six Nations I have no memory
Yeah.
of.
I remember that game. I remember him being okay. Like the scrum was even, and people were worried about the scrum being a disaster because Geffen got injured just before the game.
At 2, Kirby Myhill.
Oh, a player who played rugby.
Was it
One Cap Wonder?
Yeah, One Cap Wonder.
I was there for his one cap. One of the things I'm proudest of in my life.
Now playing at Ealing.
Yeah, of course.
Famously. Yeah, he certainly is a player. Kieran Azarati. Now, this is
Wales'
where Kieran
first choice tight
Azarati
head.
wasn't very good. And he got yellow carded, by the way. And you'll understand why when you see who's loose end for Ospreys. Yeah, he wasn't very good in this. From what I remember, this is when Azarati wasn't firing on all cylinders. But good player now. I quite like him there.
Yeah.
Ben Murphy, that second row.
Who I only have the vaguest memory of.
I have no memory of this man. Yes, Tim, you look like you know everything about it.
I can't remember much about Ben Murphy. I'm just reading through their pack now and thinking how interesting it is. But
so if I type in Ben Murphy rugby,
he's at Doncaster Knights now. I walked past a man in the street wearing Doncaster Knights stash the other day, and I was excited because you never see that. The thought of seeing a diehard Doncaster Knights fan outside Doncaster, it's a proud moment. I'm just proud to see Kirby Myhill's one hat. Billy McBride there as well. Oh, sorry. Probably.
So yeah, Ben Murphy. Yeah, I no memory of that man. Rory Thornton.
Yeah.
Player again. Alan Lawrence.
Oh,
good
yeah.
Player. I like
briefly hyped up.
Yeah. Went to Jersey and
I saw him at Sardis Road like a week after Jersey went. That was yeah, that was interesting.
So
we need a term for the players like him, like Rory Pittman, who get very briefly hyped up in that window before the autumn internationals because they have a few good games at the start of the season, and then disappoint the face of the earth completely.
So Alan Lawrence is 25, by the way. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Alan Lawrence is the name of a 36-year-old tight end.
Yeah.
Like he would have been 21, 22 playing this match. Like 22, I think. Like that's So Alan Lawrence is younger than I remember. But good. He was a good prospect at 8. I think he'll end up with Dragons soon. That seems to be the natural destination. Gwilym Bradley.
Yeah, who was okay.
Didn't he play in the COVID team? No, that Cardiff.
Oh, the pub team.
The pub team. The Restoring Pride team.
Well, obviously, his brother is Bryn Bradley, the under-20 centre, who's now with Quins, and we floated as a definite signing for next season the other week.
He's still at Cardiff, but I think he's at University of Bath.
Oh, okay.
As well.
He was all right. He's all right.
Made his debut against Leinster because, of course, he did. At number 8, James Ratty.
Good player.
Good player.
Good player. Yeah.
Why did we ever let him go? Actually, no. He was good for Cardiff. It was the right decision at the time because Ratty left during the Alan Clark era.
Yes, yeah, he did.
And as we previously discussed about Alan Clark, wasn't big on feedback.
Yeah.
So probably the right move for him. Now, this 9-10 combo might be one of the worst 9-10 combos I've ever seen in my life. Right? And Jamie from Dragon's Lair and Rap hates this number 9. That is Lewis Jones.
Yes. No, I'm with him there. I mean, I shouldn't be so. No.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I should back down. I don't hate him. I don't think he's good. I hate watching him play.
It's so frustrating.
He's I hate watching him play rugby. That's the sort of thing that I would write in a video script then cut. But
He was
yeah,
yanked off at 50. So weirdly, right, in this game, Cardiff made their subs at 51 minutes, 52 minutes, 57 and 69 minutes. And that's it. But
No,
him and his halfback partner were yanked at 52 minutes. And his halfback partner was Jason Tubby. Yeah.
I see. Okay, I like Jason Terry. I am all for Jason Terry. Maybe because I am old enough to remember the period of him being hyped up as the next big thing when he came through as a 20-year-old. And was the first Dragon to ever score a hat trick in a game. Got into the 2011 World Cup training squad ahead of Dan Bigger, which is an often forgotten factoid. And yeah, was kind of a really classy young 10. And then continued down the line of being Jason Tovey. But for a while, it was controversial he wasn't making Welsh squads when he was the same quality he would be as a 30-odd-year-old, but as a 21-year-old. He kind of emerged always the player he was always going to be.
My favourite thing about Jason Tovey, is the fact that every time Dragons lose on Twitter, he just tweets, "I'm still fit. I'm still available."
That's it. All added to by the fact that he is the millennial Lee Jarvis. And I mean that in a positive way. In that he sits on Twitter all the time, moaning in his own little way. He's always watching some sport. If there's sport on, Jason Tovey is watching it. He loves darts. He loves the Premier League. He loves the Champions League.
He's watching Kabaddi.
Yeah. He's one of the few professional players who will watch Super Rugby in the morning or when he's playing that afternoon. So much time for Jason Tovey, so much time for him tweeting shit about the darts and him. Yeah, he calls stuff out and he chats and he did an interview of Blood and Mud once where he said
that was a good interview.
Yeah, he said he really hates going to the gym and he's thought about leaving professional rugby, which he ended up doing just because he hates the gym so much. And that is a man after my own heart.
Brilliant. So then we move into I'll do the centres first. So we got professional tackle bag holder Matt Llewellyn.
Good player.
Good player.
Yeah, good player.
Yeah, good player.
His cousin's a very nice man. So I found out in Croydon in South West London. It's quite gutted about Matt Llewellyn actually. Him sort of going to Gloucester and being behind two men called Atkinson. It is quite a thing. Owen Lane at 13. Oh, Jesus Christ.
They wanted to happen so badly.
Oh, honestly. I don't like Owen Lane. I don't think he's a good player. Whenever Mason Grady makes a mistake, I call him Owen Lane. But no, I every time the words "the Lane train" were uttered on commentary, a puppy dies somewhere. That's how much I just don't. I've never seen the hype. I'm sorry, Cardiff fans, but no. Jason Harries.
One
wing. I like Jason Harries. Me and Yester have spoke about Jason Harries very recently. The bus. He was the Welsh Julian Savea.
Sure.
I'm telling you.
He doesn't play much anymore.
Yeah.
He once called it Andrew Force.
Didn't he have a stint at Edinburgh once? Or I just made that up.
Yeah. He was at Edinburgh for a while, I think. Because that was all... It was weird, because he sort of came through at Edinburgh. He was a sevens player. And then at age 28 or something, he signed for Edinburgh out of nowhere. And that seemed weird. Then, played, 5 or 6 seasons at Cardiff? I never really rated him. I thought he was fine. He was a decent, URC standard winger who would fill in. And he's the sort of player I probably would have rated if he was an Ospreys player. That is a classic bias thing, where a player that isn't particularly exciting and isn't, troubling the Wales squad, I'm watching with a less critical eye or a less forgiving eye.
So he came through at London Scottish.
Did he?
He made 46 appearances. He only made 10 appearances for Edinburgh. And then came to Cardiff. But yeah, was a sevens player for sort of on and off like 6-7 years, I think.
Right.
The other wing was Hallamemos. Fine.
Good player. I like Hallamemos.
I like Hallamemos a lot.
He's
Got a bad rap.
I will defend Hallamemos as I have done many times against Josh Gardner.
Yeah. And then Ben Thomas at fullback. This is when he was at fullback a lot.
Didn't they trial it for this game just to stick him?
I think this was his
to
trial.
see what happens.
Well, because their other option was, and we'll come on to him, was the fish. So
yes.
So on the bench then was Liam Belcher, who wasn't very good at this point.
I always liked him.
Is he a Ponty boy? Yes.
Coaching staff, yeah. Often see him once in a while at a game.
Yeah. Rhys Carey, he was a very young Rhys Carey at this point, I believe.
This was after his red card for Saracens against the Ospreys in the Champions Cup as well.
Yes, that was him. Oh my God, I forget about that. Yeah, and poor. The only reason I remember because at fullback that day was Elliot Obotoyimbo, who I quite like. And I was, I remember saying to my grandfather, I was like, "Oh, watch this!" I said, "Look at this fullback." I said, "A couple of years, I think if he has like a good run at Saracens, I think he might have like an England shot." And then Rhys Carey gets red carded like instantly, and they yank him off
after about 3.5 minutes.
And then he's at Newcastle now, and it just sort of never worked out for him. But yeah, God. So this is when Rhys Carey wasn't very good. Some would say he's not very good now. I'm not going to look. Harley knows my opinion on Rhys Carey, and it's at this point in the podcast where he pauses it and messages me to say, I'm surprised you didn't slag off Rhys Carey. Will Davis King,
once again, a rugby player.
Not going to get far with a double-barreled name in Wales. I'm sorry, Ruben Morgan Williams as well.
No.
Yeah.
You're going on the Robin Sowden Taylor pile.
Who is the highest achieving? Is it Robin Sowden Taylor, highest achieving double barrel Welsh player? Ruben Morgan Williams has carved out a decent career despite that, and I think it's because he's got two incredibly bog standard Welsh names.
The best thing I say about Robin Sowden Taylor is there's a short that the WIU put out where players do impressions of each other and the coaches. And Aaron Wainwright does a fucking brilliant impression of Robin Sowden Taylor. But it's also in that one they do an impression of Kai Evans. Tame Basham does a brilliant impression of Kai Evans, and it always makes me laugh because the one conversation I've had with Kai Evans, he sounded exactly like that. And they do one of Mackenzie Martin and his
just yelling, I love Cardiff.
I love Cardiff. Me, I'm a Cardiff boy. That one he did after they restored some pride at Cardiff Farmers Park. And then they do the Tame Basham one. He doesn't even realise they're taking the piss out of him because they've just got all the Newport boys just saying, "Right, bro, how's it going, bro?" And it's proper Newport, that, isn't it? It's like, yeah, that's you, you dickhead.
Didn't mention eating a billion toasties one weekend.
I love Tame Basham. He's got big local nightclub energy.
Yes.
He's the exact person you see at your local nightclub, not like a Revs or a Tiger. It's called Starlight, and it's not even a nightclub. It's just a pub that's got a disco ball in it, a normally large room.
Disproportionate amount of Bowie.
Yeah,
they're mostly dance anthems, but every now and again the DJ throws on, Bowie or Foo Fighters. Yeah.
Moving on, Teddy Williams, the fetus at this point.
Yeah, really coming into his good playerness at the minute.
I keep winding Harley up and saying he's a long-term six, and he's actually the second coming of Tom Croft. Because he is. He reminds me a lot of Tom Croft. That handoff and offload he does against Bath, I was like, oh my God, it is like watching Tom Croft, but he can only be Tom Croft if he gets injured and then times himself back for a Lions tour. So I fully expect him to play on the 2013 Lions tour when time travel gets invented, but he's going to be injured for the first 3.5 years.
Always a big fan of Tom Croft, inventing the concept of the edge forward before we had it.
Yeah, Exactly. He was Sia Khaleesi before Sia Khaleesi.
Yeah.
Ellis Bevan, the perennial under
You've
21.
skipped one.
Oh yeah, Ollie Robinson.
Good player.
Good player.
Good player.
Bad
Good
father.
player.
Bad father.
Yeah.
Awful father. Ollie Robinson was, if there's an underrated 15, probably his captain.
Yeah.
Never got his plaudits. Probably went to, he's one of them players who like, why isn't he playing in the Gallagher Premiership? Because he would be like, he's like, could have been like the Tom Rees, the solve England's open side problems. Ellis Bevan.
So he got to a higher level of prestige, which is player Ross Harris brings up all the time. Will Boyd was the same. That is when you know you've made it. When Ross Harris is any chance he gets telling people how he loves you. Josh McLeod's that at the minute. He loves a hard-working flanker.
Oh God, yeah.
That's the goal for Harry Deves, is to get into Ross Harris's books so that he can talk about you when he's going on his tirades about Welsh music.
I'd rather be in Martin Gillingham's book, personally. Ellis Bevan.
Good player.
Yeah, solid.
Coming into his own now as well, I think. Would have been young then. Would have been 20.
He would have been
maybe?
really young. Yeah. The Fish.
Oh, great player. Icon.
Fish. The icon, yeah. Nothing more to be said. And then a guy called Emmanuel Faye-Waboso, making his debut for Car. Don't think he did much after this. Not been in the news at all. Like, anything like that.
Yeah,
I remember.
What he's up to now. What's he up to?
I remember around this game
much.
Googling him a lot and trying to work out who he was, where he's come from. He came across his sprinting records and being like, oh, hello, this is a promising player for Wales, and Wales in particular.
There was two around this time, because do anyone remember Iwan Pearce-Jones?
Yes!
On the Wales Sevens.
Yeah.
Who played for, he's playing up at Hartbury in the Bucks League now, but
Okay.
played for Newport the other year. I think he was his first introduction to Newport the other night, actually. So there was a lot of hype around sort of this fast sidesteppy winger at the time. And then Emmanuel Faye-Waboso now is English, and more power to him. I just remember him coming on and I was like, a bit quick. That was the Cardiff Blues team. Obviously, shortly after this, they became the Rugbies. Cardiff Blues are heritage, though.
Not according to their bus.
Yeah, true. The bus. Yeah, the bus doesn't lie. So that's very quickly...
The bus, by which I mean Jason Harries, doesn't lie.
Jason Harries brought Cardiff to...
on his back.
On his back. So let's go through the Ospreys team very quickly. So you had Nicky Smith. Not surprised by Kieran Azrati got yellow carded then. Good player. Ivan Phillips.
Good player, man.
Good. He would be playing for Wales right now.
Yeah. Any chance?
As well.
Yeah. Any chance we get, bring him up. Bring him back. He should have played for Wales. Great
Scored
player.
2 this game.
Oh, yes.
Really good player. I'm going to go look at the wrong person. He scored 2 this game. Then you have got Mr. Tommy Boter.
Icon.
Do you want to know
Place in the sun alone.
Game? Do you want to know his stats in this game? So, 1 pass, 6 tackles, 1 meter gained.
Oh,
I love
service
him
as usual. But his opposite man got binned for scrum offences.
Yeah. Adam Beard, obviously.
Icon.
Pre-test Lion Adam Beard as well.
Pre-test Lion. 1
Only
clean
just,
break
though.
this game. Yeah. This is the game. He got 1 clean break, and I think he's only ever had 1 more in his career, and that was a game for the Lions. Was this Rhys Davis? Bradley Davis. I think it was Rhys Davis. So more of that Adam Beard, Rhys Davis combo.
Looking forward to seeing him back playing.
Oh yeah, he'll be back for the Edinburgh game, which will
And
be
this was kind of the start of Rhys Davies coming through.
yeah.
I remember watching him in the Rainbow Cup in this period and going, "Oh, he's surely going to be in the Wales squad immediately," because he came through and was. I suppose it wasn't his very first games. You know, he played a bit the previous season, a few games off the bench, but it was kind of in this Rainbow Cup period for me at least that he kind of really stood up and really broke through. He did some good games the previous season, but like, yeah, around then and around the end of that previous season, where he kind of came through and was fantastic and became the player we now know and adore.
Was he'll add a lot more prick into that pack.
Yeah,
Like, he's just really, really good. Back row, I'll end with the new guy. So we got Justin Tipuric, 7.
got off to Hassler infamously.
Yeah, got off to Hassler. Morgan Morris at 8, obviously. So the back row pretty much picks itself. Apart from a man at 6 called Ethan Roots, making his debut for the
Whatever
Ospreys.
became of him?
Yeah,
Each team's got a England debutant from this year's Six Nations in it.
Yeah. So Ethan was signed a few weeks earlier, and I instantly fell in love with him because I was this guy is a prick.
I think he gave away like a penalty for like diving off his feet in a ruck.
Yeah, his first involvement in the game was diving off his feet into a ruck. And I remember a guy on Twitter messaging me saying, "Oh shit, this guy is not going to be very good." And I was like, "Just you wait! I'm telling you, this man has potential." So yeah, Ethan Roots, I miss him every day.
My main memory of this period is just having a few conversations back and forth with Josh Gardner, mentioned again, because both of us were convinced he wasn't real because we're trying to look up anything on him. The Ospreys hadn't announced they'd signed him at first. He was just named in a squad. I think it was, for the Rainbow Cup or for Europe that year. They just named, like, we have a player called Ethan Roots in our squad. And you're like, who is this guy? And you Google him and there's no record of him out there. And you're like, are we made up? Have we randomly generated a player? Have we taken Plumtree a player into being? And then he arrived, he dived off his feet, and everything beyond that was poetry.
Yeah. At 9, no one played 9. Can you believe it? No one played at all.
The ghost of Tom Haberfield.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say Tom Haberfield. Ricky January played at 9. Josh Thomas, 10.
Oh.
Discuss.
Yeah. A player who I'm glad got his one day in the sun. You know, he's got one Streets will never forget moment in that try against Leinster, the charge down to win the game. And that is enough for me. You know, we'll live in infamy for such.
I'm more happy with who we've got now.
Yes.
And that's all I'm going to say. Matthew Prothero at 11. End of his first season, was it? Or was this?
Yeah, his first season. So he obviously scored that try against Edinburgh right at the start of the season from that Kieran Williams. But this was like before he's kind of got like a run of games together before that Champions Cup performance against Sale, where he just ran around everyone. And
George North at 14. This is where he picked up his serious injury, wasn't it?
Yeah,
ruled him out of the Lions.
Yeah, this ruled him out of the Lions tour.
Yeah. Keith and Owen at centre. Nothing more to say about them.
Classic.
Solid.
By the way, when we saw Tom Florence was named on the bench, the Don Morris sort of got injured, which we're gutted for. If them two are on the field together, they're absolutely being called Florence and the Machine. and that is my magnum.
It's your finest work.
It is
your finest work.
I was smiling like an idiot in Farringdon train station. And then was this one of his last appearances, Dan Evans?
No, he played. Well, maybe it was a year or so after this.
He played a pre-season game.
He played in Hugh Sutton's debut at Sale, which is obviously.
Did he? So Dan Evans was in that game as well.
Yeah, he played 11 games the following season.
Okay, right.
So yeah, this was towards the end though. Like of his 836 games of taking the ball at fullback, running into the closest man, somehow getting out that tackle. This was towards the end. This was in the final 1% of his game for the Ospreys.
On the bench, then you've got Sam Parry, probably scored about 40 tries. That's
Yeah,
even
great player.
Score, actually.
Did score.
Yeah,
Scored in the final
did
play.
score. Yeah, because I think that's what got Jason Harries' yellow card. Or it was definitely leading up to it. Jordan Lay in his 800th emergency load appearance for the Ospreys.
Yeah.
I think he was the other one that was written down in that European squad next to Ethan Root. And we're thinking, has he joined back?
Yeah. Because he just kept, I think he just keeps turning up at the training ground. They're like, oh, hi, Jordan, you're back.
He became a sort of, he's a running joke in the Squid Rugby office for the Ospreys posting a video that said something like, get to know Jordan Lay. And then the video is him saying, my name's Jordan. I was born in New Zealand. I'm from Samoa. And that's sort of it. And I can't explain it, but we bring up that video all the time. That comes up on at least once a week basis of let's meet Jordan Lay. Let's get to know Jordan Lay. It's funnier in my head. I think it's a big you had to be there.
Because I know the exact same. They used to do some cracking ones. The Justin Tipperick one, if you remember back in the day, it was like they asked him, what's your name? Justin Tipperick. What's your nickname? He goes, what? You're serious? He's like, come on now, it's a bit self-explanatory.
Can we, one week, do a retrospective on Osprey's mastermind?
Yes. Oh my God. The Reece Henry and Morgan Morris one. Where is brilliant.
So I have that on my watch later on YouTube and have for years, and it comes up once a week for me to watch that at least, and it has for years. And I just like having the thumbnail pop up of Reece Henry and Morgan Morris as a married couple.
Well, funny enough, Reece Henry's at 18, as he was a lot at this period.
Infamously described by Toby Booth around then as heroic.
Yeah,
in his first game.
Bradley Davis, 19. Coming off of fights, no doubt. Great player. Sam Cross, again, pretty much owned the 20 jersey at this around this time. Scored as well, yeah. The rarest of hen's teeth. Reuben Morgan Williams, weirdly on the bench. Considering we had no one at 9. You'd question why Toby Booth put Scrum half on the bench and we played with 14 men.
He's always thinking that one. He's always innovating.
Yeah. A baby Joe Hawkins at 22.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of extra players in this team.
Yes,
you're right.
Heavy team.
Both sides.
Joe Hawkins didn't do much in this game, considering the season he had, where especially when he played 10 at Sale, when I thought he was very good.
Yeah.
Didn't do much, but then again, he had no one passing to him because, again, there was no one at 9. And then Kai Evans. This is when Kai Evans started to become good.
This was the time where they just chuck him on the wing just because why not?
Because you're Giants, boy. You will run like your father. Yeah, but this is when he started becoming okay, actually. And then they decided, shit, he's actually a fullback, and he's really good at it. Cool. So finished 36-14. Let's have a look at some stats, right? Let's have a look at disciplines. Is always fun. How many penalties do you think Ospreys gave away?
16.
No. Yes,
11.
No, 6. Cardiff,
right.
not Cardiff, not surprisingly gave away 15.
And Jason Harries got sin binned as well.
Of course. Yeah, scrums is pretty similar as we thought. Ospreys 10 mauls, 1. Cardiff 1.
I mean, shown in the fact there's 3 hooker tries.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I remember it being like Ospreys were clearly on top the whole game. We were just sort of like holding Cardiff at arm's length.
Mm.
And that was it. It wasn't like a dominant performance or anything like that. We just sort of mauled them off the park, and Cardiff just getting increasing. Like the other Welsh teams have this superiority complex that somehow, because you put the ball through the hands more, your tries are somehow better. Like, lads, they're all worth 5 points. Like the other bit of that Toby Booth interview is he talks about being able to go up the field without passing the ball.
Yeah.
Which is a really good thing to do. You know, that's essentially what the Ospreys are really good at. And me and Yester were talking about this earlier. And I don't like the superiority complex that other teams have, where just because you pass the ball through the backs or whatever makes you a better team.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on the one that's winning games. It's why Exeter was so good for many years. That Exeter team that was so dominant had a set game plan and they just did not deviate from it. That's also why I think teams like Gloucester struggled, because they struggle with an identity.
Yeah.
Because Gloucester for years they're like, we're going to have this big brutish pack, but then we're going to sign Danny Cipriani and all of a sudden play really sexy rugby, and then we're going to go back to a brutish pack, but then we're going to sign Adam Hastings and then have a really measured kicking game. So it's sort of like Toby Booth has an identity for the team, and he's evolved it rather than
fundamentally changing anything.
Oh, I think that's the episode, boys. I think we sit in 7th. Robbie, before we go,
hello. Oh shit! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to recommend one really good film that's on Viaplay. I have seen this one. I watched this over the weekend. It's one of the most kind of nail-biting and thrilling things I've seen in some time. It's called Ospreys versus Ulster. It's available on Viaplay now. You can rewatch it for like 4 days until they randomly take it down, which they do sometimes. Or it might stay up for the full season, because they do that as well sometimes. You can never quite know with Viaplay. It's a real thrill ride. Wait until the ending. The ending is spectacular.
Yeah. Cool. So
it's also got Stellan Skardgard in it, though, weirdly.
He plays Toby Booth.
They've done a 1-to-1 recreation of the game, but they've got Toby Booth played by Stellan Skardgard. Just saying, we're in the entertainment business, over and over.
He can't quite get the Blackheath accent right, so he just improvises and just does the Swedish one instead.
Swedish Boofy.
They've got an actual Croatian in to play Justin Tipuric.
I think that's why they bought the rights. They saw the name Tipuric and they're like, that's up our street.
Michael Chiklis plays Rhys Henry.
I'd watch that. I'd be all over that.
I'd be all over.
I bet his kicking skills are superb.
Oh, brilliant. So Robbie recommends Ospreys versus Ulster. You can find this.
Yeah, Dan Edwards being a young person is obviously played by either Tom Holland or Timothy Chalamet. They just like flip a coin, scene by scene. Like the first half he's played by one, second half by the other. They're the only two young actors that are given work now. Lucas Hedges sits crying as he's forced to play Matt Prothero.
Yeah, they've just gone and found like all the blonde actors to play, like Ethan McElroy, Matt Prothero. They've just got like an angry dog to play Harry Deems.
Good movie on Viaplay now.
You can find this on this podcast in a fucking disgrace. Oh my god! If you've made it this far, I salute you, because this podcast is every week I say it is an absolute disgrace. Yet we love it. So you can find us on all the usual socials at Yestin_Thomas21, at Squidge Rugby, and at Ospreys Irie on Twitter or X. No Ospreys game this week for the next 2 weeks. No, is it? Or is it? No, it's 1 week.
Just the 1 week.
It's the 1 week.
Yeah.
Before, is it a Friday night Edinburgh away?
Friday night
Edinburgh away. If you're going up, have a good time. If not, we will see you next week to play. We will play Good Player. I believe we're looking at the game to win the title Robbie, are we not?
Oh, the 2004, the Ospreys 2005,
So,
Ospreys first title.
We're either going to look at that or we're going to look at Toby Booth's first game. I think we're going to look at the title one because there's a lot older players. So we're going to look at that. We're also going to preview the Edinburgh game. And hopefully we'll have a nice quiet week with no news. We didn't talk about the
lots of re-signings.
We didn't talk about the Ireland selection. Well done to the 3 lads who got selected. They were never not going to be selected. Sorry, I forgot about that. Hashtag Team Wales. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Ospreys Harry podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.